Looks like it is recording.
Okay, boom. Okay, now it's you doing it. So I think, yeah, it says Denver's recording the call. So, okay.
Fantastic. I hope I know how to edit, because this is the first show tonight, Matt. This is my first show. This is the prom night of the Mighty Peculiar, right? The prom night of the Mighty Peculiar. I know people are going to be watching this. I don't really care if they see us trying to record. I don't give a rat's ass. I'm just really happy. Thanks for being with me tonight there, Matt. I love that you're tinfoil Matt tonight. And, with the Mighty Peculiar, you saw the other name I put on it. I actually built the YouTube page myself, and it's like a monkey humping a football, me trying to do that. But I did like the banner, right? The banner looked pretty good. The
banner's great, yeah.
The guy going through the woods, I think, as I go and I do this show more and more, I think you're going to see me out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, hopefully with you, Matt, with tinfoil Matt, and hopefully looking for other monsters like the Chupacabra, maybe the Mothman. Maybe we're going to be looking for some UFOs, some orbs in the forest, maybe some haunted houses, things like that. So that's what I like to do.
Ghost hunting's the way to go.
It is. And then start to merge all of that with what's going on in Congress, what's going on with the crazy belief systems in politics, whether it's in the executive, legislative, or the judicial branch. But to really look at...
You got all three of them. You did good.
Right? I did good. Well, you got to remember, I saw the Mark Meadows text messages, right? So we could talk, we got QAnon, we got every conspiracy theory you can imagine that was wrapped in that QAnon sticky bomb that, happened on January 6th, got all that nuttiness. But I think me starting the Mighty Peculiar was really about how cults and conspiracies really have sort of rippled through time, and how fantasy can cause violence, right? And that this show really is about tears, laughter through tears. This is about horror and humor, because I think we're going to laugh, but I think I want people to be terrified too about what can happen when fantasy is weaponized.
Yeah, and I think the humor part for me is always important, even when the subject is awful. Like, we talk about things like the Satanic Panic, which, ensnared lots of innocent people in life-altering, not any, not interactions with a satanic cult, but just the accusations of being part of one. There are people that sat in jail for years as a result, and there was nothing to any of it.
Nothing.
But I have to be able to laugh at that kind of stuff too, the absurdity of it, because otherwise I don't think I could last long reading about all of the stuff and researching any of the topics, because if it was all doom and gloom,
you would be in a nightmare every day. Every day you would try to do this stuff, and I'm there.
That's the thing. It's unsustainable, and the problem with that is then it makes you want to turn away from it, not learn anything about this stuff, and then not learning about it, as we find out, is usually why things come back, like why the Satanic Panic can reinvent itself into QAnon, right? Like, not enough. I don't think enough people ever really understood or knew the inner workings and what the problem was with something like the Satanic Panic. It was like fun stories. Oh, heavy metal is gonna ruin your lives. You can play records backwards. That's what people know about it. They don't realize how destructive it was at the same time. So
it sure was. And if you think about one of the major organizers behind January 6th, when I did, I was a senior technical advisor on the January 6th committee, and looking at Roger Stone and looking at QAnon as a whole as a very religious, type of messianic or apocalyptic, cult, right? Where there's one true leader, right? They have to follow this ordained leader, right? And then they have all these sort of conspiracy sticky bomb things going on. But you look at Roger Stone, you're talking about satanic portals, over the White House, right? So I think as we go,
he's directionally challenged, but yes,
he is, because it should have been below. But I think as we go into this show, Matt, there is going to be times when we laugh and we talk about Roger Stone and satanic portals, but we also have to realize that because of these belief systems, or playing off the ignorant, these grifters, right, can actually monetize and weaponize fantasy. And I think when you look at January 6th, and really what wanted me to really, or started me on this path, to want to educate on data, on analytics, but on cults, conspiracies, on disinformation. We started with Al-Qaeda, or I did with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and now we're going to these domestic terror groups and social media that allows insanity to metastasize, almost like you're mainlining crazy into your frontal lobe. And I think that's the thing that really worries me about what we're doing. And, and even looking at QAnon, right? And,
Yeah.
in the books that I've written, as you know, I'm the best-selling author of The Breach, right? I'm an author of Bigfoot, It's Complicated. And it's just amazing to me that really those two books are almost the same.
Yeah. There's a through line between them, which you wouldn't expect, even just looking at them, just knowing that one is about Bigfoot and the believers, more importantly about the believers in Bigfoot, which is something that I think is funny, because most people don't know that part about it, and even to this day, I think there are some people that are still convinced that you wrote some love letters to Bigfoot.
Bigfoot erotica. That's why the next time we do this, if we're talking about this, I would play the SNL clip, the Saturday Night Live clip of them, them having an actor playing me talking about Bigfoot erotica, which was so ludicrous at the time. But again, disinformation is very powerful.
But isn't that like the perfect example, right? Like here,
perfect example.
Book was all about trying to understand a belief system, basically by way of immersing yourself and going with these people that believe in Bigfoot, looking for Bigfoot. And it was all about trying to sort out what is real, what's not. And that book itself becomes the target of disinformation.
Yeah, this is it. People can see it's real, right? Bigfoot is complicated. What I wanted to do is I wanted to use Bigfoot believers, Matt, right, as sort of an avatar, sort of an example of what disinformation, myth, right, or grifters taking advantage of those individuals, what could happen when this is monetized, right? People are completely involved in this Bigfoot religion. There's different belief systems, right? It's like, it's honestly like the Protestants and the Catholics and the Buddhists and the Hindus all fighting each other, right, in the woods based on their belief systems. And then you have these individuals who take advantage of that by charging them for these experiences on something that is absolutely mythological, and then actually having theories, scientific theories based on vaporware, based on fantasy, having theories. So you have Bigfoot experts that are experts in the mythology of something that's unprovable. And by the way, Matt, that's exactly like QAnon. It's exactly like the people, right, who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. You have multiple belief systems there. And I want to just point this out real quick as we're going forward, because I did say on Twitter I'd talk about this. What's amazing to me is me and you have talked about, right? Me and you've been on the phone so much.
Yeah.
We've talked about the inconsistencies as sort of the superpower of conspiracy theories, right? They hit you in the amygdala, right? It's about emotion. And if it's consistent, it doesn't matter. Even if it makes sense, it doesn't matter. Right. But if you think about Bigfoot belief systems, everybody believes in Bigfoot, right? Yeah. But the biological entity believers who believe Bigfoot's an ape or a descendant of Homo erectus, they're not real happy with the Quaventalor mystical Bigfoot believers who believe that Bigfoot's an interdimensional long jumper that can actually hover over your bed and just sort of ESP prophecies into your brain. These are two different Bigfoots, right? Yeah. I don't know who would win in a fight between the mystical Bigfoot and the biological entity or the ape-like Bigfoot. Right. But I'm telling you, all of these people are having these arguments, but there's still that overarching belief in Bigfoot. So for me, that hypocrisy or that contradiction is evident in QAnon. For instance, and I want to ask you this, Matt. Yeah. Did the fires in California start because Antifa started them or space lasers? Two QAnon conspiracy theories, right?
Right. So what I would say is, do we know that Antifa does not control the space lasers?
And so now we have
a third conspiracy.
A third, right? That because the globalist government is composed of people who are secretly members of Antifa, they're actually controlling the space lasers, right? Yep. And by the way, Antifa is directly hooked to the globalists like the Rothschilds and George Soros, right? Where they actually have a command and control infrastructure to direct those lasers where they need to be for fires to start at very great and opportune times for geopolitical advantage. So,
it all makes perfect sense.
Right. I just came up with and thank you, Matt. You came up with the overarching vision of a third conspiracy theory hooked to Antifa and space lasers, two contradictory QAnon-based, right, conspiracy theories. We just actually offshot a third based on other conspiracy theories for QAnon, based on globalist domination, most of those anti-Semitic, with a real root in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. So now we're actually starting to pull a thread of conspiracy theories that to maybe conspiracy theorists sounds completely realistic, reasonable.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Like I, you know, as you said, we've talked about the idea of how quick that conspiracy theorists are to find each other and align with each other, even when they are themselves are not consistent in their beliefs. Or you know, my example, kind of piggybacking off of yours, is as someone who does not believe in the existence of Bigfoot, I always would think that I could find more common ground with the guy who thinks it's Bigfoot is a natural creature that just has gone undiscovered, but does not necessarily break any of the, you know, the laws of physics or reality as we know them. But in reality, that person who believes that it's just a natural creature is going to align with Smoke Monster Bigfoot, because they both believe in Bigfoot and I'm the outsider. Whereas and to me, that always ends up being fascinating, because unlike, I mean, I think with politics, right? Like most people now sort themselves in that way, that like are only talking to people that 100% agree with themselves, with each other. And the one thing that the conspiracy theorists kind of almost have to do better than like really politically minded people is they are willing to accept, you know, variations or different different versions of belief. They'll still find common cause with you, even if you don't align with them 100%. Like they are. There's a weird bipartisanship in Bigfoot belief.
There is. You know, we have to explain the Smokefoot first, right? You know, that,
I mean, go for it. I just know that.
Right. When I had a guy in a white van come up to me, you know, I was coming out of the hotel during a Bigfoot expedition in 2006, and he met with me and Don Barone, who is an ESPN outdoor writer, and immediately, you know, said that we were wrong, that actually by blowing smoke into the woods through smoking copious amounts of cigarettes and cigars and blowing smoke, you can actually see the portals where the Bigfoot will actually manifest. That's number one. So I want people to know when Matt talks about the Bigfoot smoke monster, that's what we're talking about. The other thing too, you said something that actually is funny and also I think profound. And I think, if I may summarize for you, sir,
sure.
I think what you're saying is that the conspiracy theorists maybe are more tolerant than the cults of the tribal political parties that we have today. Right. And so, right. And I think that's really an interesting point. Right. But on the other hand, if you get enough of those conspiracy theorists together and you have a charismatic leader who can put that glue together and make it a good against evil apocalyptic battle, I think you have something like January 6th, or you have something like the violence that happens in awful ways, you know, like, for instance, Paul Pelosi. Right. And so I think those are the kind of things that we have to worry about. I think that's why this show for me is so important as we go forward. And that's why tonight, just an introduction, you know, for me as a former congressman, former senior technical advisor, CEO of multiple DoD companies, former Air Force intelligence officer, best-selling author of The Breach, author of Bigfoot's Complicated. And I'm with a man here. And the reason I had Matt on tonight and why I was excited about it is because of Matt's creativity and his knowledge of conspiracy theories and cults, but also the fact that he's a writer, right? Graphic novels, right? And very, very brilliant in actually putting together different concepts of crazy into a way that, you know, is actually understandable to, you know, the general public. So
I'm going to use that as a blurb.
Brilliant at
putting together different concepts of crazy. That is, you better believe that is on anything I send out from now on.
Well, I do want you to know, you know, I think we have maybe 50 subscribers in my first YouTube tonight, right? And, you know, I have a pretty big Twitter following and a lot of people watch me on the news, but I think we have to get to brass tacks. I think people might be watching this going, Denver, where do you really want to go with this? And I think just tonight, by comparing, you know, the Bigfoot belief systems to the QAnon belief systems, and that they're so disjointed and so contradictory, and that really is emotional, based on belief and fantasy and faith rather than facts and data.
Right.
How do we educate people in a way that makes us laugh and makes us cry and is horrific, right? But also people can say, you know what, that makes sense. right?
Right.
It does repeat. It does rhyme. History does repeat. History does rhyme. There is something we have to watch out for when it
Yeah.
comes to charlatans, grifters, belief systems, or where power is actually infused in one man or one group or one organization, that it's their way or the highway. And I think that's antithetical to American values. And I think it's antithetical to freedom of thought. But I think it's antithetical to the very fact of our humanness, right? Our
Right.
humanity, right? And what makes us people. And and hell, I don't know, Matt. I don't know why I started this, coming from Air Force intelligence and going after terrorists to being so concerned, right, about fantasy as policy. And it's really where it comes down to.
You know, I mean, I think the simplest answer, from an outsider's perspective is why that leap would be made on your part is at this point, we are now almost back to a place where we no longer necessarily agree on what reality is and what's real. So, in any bit of progress that we've made, and however you want to measure progress, right? Whether it's different policies that have been enacted or technology that allows us to do stuff like this, we've undeniably humanity has done great things. But the problem is, in exchange for all of that, somehow we've ended up at a place where we don't even agree whether or not an election was rigged or was real or was rigged. Like, you go on Twitter and look at any breaking news story, and people will be rushing with like so many alternate versions of it. Like, there's no almost like no baseline left. And so I could see someone that takes things from your perspective, it's practical, it's data, and it's like that all needs a baseline, right? Like, you can't understand data if you don't like just know your samples, your sources, anything. Like, none of that works, right? You have to agree that 1 + 1 = 2 in order to be able to do any of that stuff. But if you don't agree with that, then data doesn't mean anything either, right? Like,
It doesn't. And the irony of that, gosh, Matt, that's a great point, because the irony of that is that I would say that critical ignorance is now being spread through superior technology.
right.
Right.
That's
And
exactly what it is. Like,
right.
we
It's
can get, we can get the dumbest stuff out there faster than anyone else. Like, that's great, I guess, except if you are the truth and you need to like have a fighting chance. Like,
well, I've said it before. I think our fighting chance here is that I want our campfire stories, like I said, to be a combination of humor or horror. But a lot of campfire stories, these fantasies that you think are myth, has turned into real bloodshed.
right.
We're going to have stories about that. I know about that. You know about that, Matt. You've done research. I've done massive research on this. Fantasies can turn into bloodshed,
Yeah.
right? And that is something that charlatans, grifters, demagogues, sociopaths, the immoral, that's something they can always count on, is there's going to be a percentage of the population that's ignorant enough to follow this. And I'm going to be very blunt and brutal about that.
Yeah.
And I think, again, our campfire stories are going to just scare the shit out of people. But what we're going to be doing, buddy, because I've said this before, to crib from Hunter S. Thompson, right, is that I'm going to be dragging in this show. I'm going to be dragging my million-pound shit hammer of data and facts, right? And I'm going to do
Yeah.
anything I can to make sure it goes. And so this first Friday night, as people are partying and I'm drinking my bourbon, and we're going to listen to some music after this, and we're going to have a good old time. But what I'm saying to you, Matt, is that I think there comes a time when people have to stand up for facts and data. We got to make facts and data sexy. Right. And we got to realize that belief systems, whether you're a Bigfoot believer, which is sort of benign in some ways, I don't think Bigfoot believers are going to be storming the Capitol, or whether you believe that there's a globalist cabal to take over America, right, and that Bill Gates started COVID. Those two are two mythological belief systems, but we
Right.
have to realize that one of those can become very dangerous. And at some
Yes.
point, those have to be pointed out, maybe before they happen.
Right.
And I think that's going to be really important. Can this show be predictive? Maybe. I hope it can be, but we are in the breach, my friend, and I think it's time for us, to go to war on this. So again, yes, there is a direct connection between QAnon belief systems and Bigfoot belief systems. I can't wait to go into it more. I know it's our first night,
Yeah.
But that's really what I want to do. And I'm really excited to share the message, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And it's also going to be a lot of horror. And
Yeah.
I want people to laugh and not be able to go to sleep. That's really where I want to be when I'm done with some of these shows.
Yes, I'm with you. I think you said that you want to make like the data and the facts sexy, and part of me, I frequently think about it from a storytelling perspective, since that's where my expertise, whatever comes in, is I sometimes say I want to make people understand and be okay with the fact that reality is boring. Like, we don't need to dress it up. We don't need to we can um, go about our daily lives and raise like our families and enjoy and make sure our kids are safe without having to like go on a crusade to save the children that are being kept underground places. Like, we don't need that in our lives. We can be fine with boring. Reality is boring, and that's fine, because that's where fiction and stories can come in. So if you want to make data sexy, I want to make reality boring. And there we go.
And this is going to be as much fun, I think, as we can have. And there's going to be times, I just want to let everybody know, where Matt's with me. Sometimes I'm just going to be riding solo. But I think when we have tinfoil Matt on, I think we're going to have some of the most fun we can have. But I do appreciate everybody. Matt, do you have any questions? By the way, I am drinking my wife's reserve bourbon. I believe This is a
Nice.
6-year-old cask strength. I think we rolled this out at we rolled this one out at 108 proof. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. I'm drinking it neat, no ice tonight, folks. But we did, and by the way, I think we've been recording for 21 minutes and 37 seconds. This hasn't been long at all. But and I'm sure people like Denver, we want more. I want to give more. But I think tonight we just want to get this set up. We want to make sure that people know where I'm coming from, what my background is, what Matt's background is. We're going to have so many incredible people that I'm friends with that might be on this show in some nights. And I don't really care if this is monetized or not, Matt, to be honest with you. I think we're going to have so much fun. I think people know I do most of my stuff for free anyway.
Yeah.
But I do believe if we can get enough people who really want to have a lot of fun, I think we can kick some ass, brother. And I do.
I agree.
I think we can kick some ass, right? And with your knowledge of the Satanic Panic, which is why I think you're wearing a red shirt tonight, I think you wanted to represent, right, the portal group, right?
Yes.
Who really are into satanic portals,
Well,
right?
Unfortunately, my altar is like just off camera. So
yes, your altar is right off camera. You need to actually one night you need to bring on, so we can get to know your altar.
I'll make sure I wear my cloak as well.
Wear your cloak. That's right. I want you to wear that. We need to make sure that you actually are the one, right?
Right.
So as we go forward. But Matt, for you, I mean, what do you're out there, you're seeing this. You do a lot of podcasts yourself. You've done a lot of writing. You have a lot of friends that are sort of into fictionalizing crazy, where facts, or I guess, God, truth has become so much more stranger than fiction. You think that was sort of glib before, truth is stranger than fiction.
Right.
Well, it is. But I mean, where do you think we're going? And, as you see me trying to do this, which is going to be, so many people do podcasts and YouTube bullshit. And,
sure.
And I did not, I didn't want to do this, but damn it, I know a lot of shit. You know a lot of shit.
Right.
Right. And I mean, I know a lot, right? I'm not, I'm obviously not a genius. I think most of my stuff came from experience and bad decisions. But I certainly, after writing a few books, after doing counterterrorism for so long in data, right now, I started another company doing artificial intelligence ontologies and, trying to do some interesting things with identifying bad actors, right?
And I will say, I understood most of those words. So if they want to know where I am coming from, there was a word in there, a couple of them that I got. I know what you're talking about. So yes.
Right. So I know that you've been excited about imparting your knowledge out there. So we're going to give it a shot. That's all I'm saying right now. We're going to give it a shot, and I've been taking shots as we've been talking. So this is Bourbon Bigfoot, right? We're talking about Bourbon and Bigfoot. We're talking about back rooms and politics. And I think once me and you talking about the parties, talking about the crazy and the insanity there, I think people are going to be really excited about that too. But I do want to appreciate anybody who subscribed to this point. I just have a feeling that this is going to get pretty crazy.
I'm sure they're mostly my fans. I know. The name Matt Anderson is the big draw.
It is. It is.
Just
It's just,
you're welcome. You're welcome
thank you.
for
Thank
this.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Could you thank your altar also? And I think we're in really good shape here. And
Yeah.
we're in really good shape.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've had, as you said before, we've had tons of conversations. They're pretty freewheeling, and you know, in my opinion, I sometimes that is where you can pick up the best insights and just really kind of see where people are coming from. And so I
Well, I think that's pretty interesting at the end of the breach in my epilogue. I say something, and it's very, very quick. And, I'm reading page 266, from the breach. And this is actually, I think, where we're at, brother. And I just turned to it. But it says, America was caught largely by surprise on January 6th. Now we have the data. We know what's out there, and we know the stakes. Our tools for confronting this problem are better than ever. There's no excuse. We can't let January 6th happen again. And I think, now that we do have the tools, we have the data, we have people that are aware of what's happening. I think if people don't get and talk about this and talk about the weaponization of myth, the weaponization of insanity, and the fact that, like you said earlier, Matt, that we have to have sort of a truth-based way of discussing things with each other. If we can't agree on truth and facts, we can't move forward. So my hope is to the hundreds of subscribers that I'm sure that I'm going to get, after this incredible time, right? That at least if we can affect one or two people that aren't afraid to confront people who are absolutely mired in disinformation and beliefs and have gotten all of their information from Glenn Beck, right? We want to make sure that we give people the tools to confront people with humor, with seriousness, right? With elasticity of mind, right? To be able to flex to the craziness of the arguments, because what we're going to give people are the tools, and hopefully I can give people at least a small toolkit where they can go out and confront this type of nastiness. So there you go, brother. There we go. So
I couldn't say it any better. So
and I appreciate you. But I think we're about ready to sign off, and it's been I wanted to do under a half an hour. I think we did all right. And I don't know, do you have any end question for me to end on? What end question would you have, Matt, for me?
Okay. So let's start with this one this time, and then we got
okay. I'm ready. I know you had a few.
I've got a few, but we'll try and do these in order. If that makes some sense. So let's start with favorite. What is your favorite conspiracy theory? And again, conspiracy theory using that kind of loosely in my asking this question. So like that could involve ghosts and the supernatural stuff, which I know it's not necessarily conspiracy theory, but if you had to pick one out that you would say that's your favorite, just for whatever reason, the most entertaining, the most interesting.
I think the one that has a lot of staying power that I've always, because I was so affected by it by the 80s. Yeah. I have to say it's the Satanic Panic. It's my favorite. Yeah. Right. The Satanic Panic, the way that people react to it, even the fact that it's reawakened today in a way that's maybe even more powerful than the 80s, based on how people are flying to, Satanists and satanic portals, usually on the GOP side, to be honest with you, right? And usually on the MAGA GOP side right now, right? I think that is my favorite. Yeah. Satanic Panic, down the line. Red orbs chasing people that are controlled by Satan in the 80s. My friends saying that the Satanists came to their house and tried to take their mother away, and the whole 9 yards, right? And the shows and the movies, and people, looking at the old investigative shows about the Satanic Panic, Geraldo Rivera talking about the Satanic Panic. So I think Satanic Panic is my favorite overall, my favorite conspiracy theory.
Yeah. No, I like that one a lot. I have one Satanic Panic like story that I remember from being, I must have been in, second grade, maybe. Right. At kind of some of the height of it. And I remember there was this one kid who was lived on our street, and there was this little hill in this forested area, and he had this rock. It was kind of a big rock, and he was trying to break it against another rock. And I just remember like, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, there's a soul in this rock, and if I break it open, it'll come out, and it was basically a genie, but a demon. And he was as convinced of this as possible. And this wasn't like just like childhood imagination. This was because like
real.
This stuff was just around. People were just talking about it, talking about the things that like, what was it, like how many people were supposedly like sacrificed like a day? It's like, and like you would notice if people were going missing at the rate that they were talking about. Like
it's amazing. You know, so you had a stoned demon, right? You had a, yeah, right.
Which, to be fair, I have a feeling you just nailed it. I bet you he had an older brother that was talking about some stuff, and the kid heard stoned and demon and took it literally, but really,
took it literally.
The older brother was just, listening to some wasp.
Now you had thousands of kids at that time period trying to break rocks to make sure the demons could get out. And, you know, for me, and, you know, we'll end on this because we talked about the Satanic Panic. I had a friend, I was in 6th grade, who had moved multiple times. And I remember there was a wooded area outside of Stonewall Middle School in Manassas, Virginia. And if I remember correctly, he was afraid of this wooded area.
Well, that's where it all happens.
Well, that's where we all played, right? The ball fields were over there, and we'd play in the woods and hide and seek out there and all that kind of stuff. And I remember he goes, well, I have to move a lot, you know, Denny. And I said, well, why did you move so much, buddy? And he's like, well, my mom, she's been chased by these people who believe in Satan, and in our house, they try to burn our house down. And she tells me we're moving so much because these Satan people are after us. And I remember even as a 6th, 7th grader, maybe I was 12, 13, you are cogent a little bit at that time, right?
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, and at that time, right, I was raised Mormon too. So I did have a very strong belief in good and evil. I was very afraid for this kid. And I said, you know, maybe we need to say a prayer, you know, and things like that. And I did. I actually prayed for this kid because his parents or his mother was being chased by Satan. Now, scary that she made that story up. I'm sure it was some other factors that why they were moving so much, right? It could have been poverty, or it could have been drugs. We don't know.
Right.
But I think what you said about the stone demons and me about the kid running from demons, that was just prevalent. That was everywhere. And I have so many stories about the Satanic Panic from probably 1983, 1984 through 1988. You know, I'm old, brother. So, but to sign off, I want people to there's a couple of things I want to say. Satanic portals aren't real. There is no Satanic Panic. And I know this is pretty blunt for people. I know there's people that are religious and things like that, but demons aren't taking over your body, right? And I think when I see this, if we do think people believe that Satan has that kind of power, or a Lucifer, or some kind of devil, and they believe that people are coming after them that are actually influenced by Satan, they're going to react badly. And I think we have to talk about that as we go forward. We got to talk about people's belief systems driving to them to violence because they think they're on the side of good, whether it's spiritual warfare or things like that. So I'm glad we ended this way, but I think that's really where we need to go. And you know, even when I wrote The Breach, I talked about that in my childhood, and that's really hard to overcome. Is this, gosh, I hate to say it, but it is faith over facts sometimes, you know. So there you go.
And if I could just add one last thing to that, is what you were saying is, I think it comes down to seeing people that you disagree with as humans is important. And I don't think that's what we see anymore a lot of times. Like, I mean, if you are of a belief system that demonic forces are taking hold of people, then you're the human being that you are arguing with, you may not be seeing them as a human being. So that's not a place to start. And like, that's not a place to start finding any solution. So I think, you know, at that level, you know, you almost have to work, we almost have to work down to the level of like, okay, to start this discussion, are we seeing each other as human beings? And that almost has to be the agreed upon starting place.
I think it's about humanity. And I would tell, you know, everybody out there as we go forward, you know, sometimes maybe you think it's good against evil, but just remember that people are people. And I think treating them on a basic human level is probably more important than anything we can do today. I'd also like to say, you know, as we wrap up on the Satanic Panic, you know, I'm on Twitter, right? I'm on YouTube. If you have comments or questions about data analysis, telephony, if you're looking at any type of forensics or talking about Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, UFOs, all the Bigfoot belief systems, which we're going to go into. I am going to go into next time so everybody understands how many different Bigfoot belief systems there are. And I'm going to compare each one of those to another conspiracy theory, and we're going to have a hell of a time. Also, if you have any ideas or thoughts about Republicans or Democrats, anything you want to know about the elections, I can answer those too. I'm doing a lot of things. And with Matt here, we can actually make it so much fun that you're not going to be able to even withstand it. So have a drink. Cheers to everybody. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to try to stop this recording and not look like idiots trying to do it, but I do appreciate you. Thank you, Tinfoil
Thank you
Matt.
for having me. I'll say hi to Ethan, your
Yeah.
first subscriber. Just throw that out
First
there.
subscriber. Hail to the first subscriber.
He's upstairs right now. He'll watch.
Oh my
this,
gosh,
so.
he'll watch it. He'll watch it. But thank you, Matt. You take
All right,
care,
thank
and
you.
I'll see you next. See you, Tinfoil. All right, buddy. Signing out, and everybody again. Any questions? Let me know. Out here from the Mighty Peculiar. See ya.